This is Lori Fetrick, aka Ice from the American Gladiators, and you are listening to Fascination Street.
Yeah, AV in your ears. That's Ambush Van giving you this audio visual down the most interesting street in the world with my boy Steve. Fascination Street, you already know. Let's get it when you whip in the Fascination Street. What do you?
Welcome back, Streetwalkers. This episode is with Lori Fetrick, Ice, on the American Gladiator TV series in the 90s. She was on like 8 seasons of that show or something crazy like that. In this episode, we learn all about how Lori got into bodybuilding, how she became an American Gladiator. We get some of her backstory, including her interesting experiences with the church life. And then we talk about American Gladiators. Not so much about the show, but about how she got the show, what she's been doing after the show. Is she still in contact with some of the other gladiators? And she tells me about 2 new documentaries coming out about the American Gladiators. There is an upcoming 30 for 30 on ESPN about the American Gladiators, and there is a 5-part Netflix docu-series about the American Gladiators, which I am super excited about. So we talk about those things. We also talk about her new podcast, Chillin With Ice, where we get to know her a little bit better and the other American Gladiators. They talk about how they became gladiators. They talk about some of their experiences during the shooting, during the filming, during their reign as the gladiators, and about what some of them are doing after the American Gladiators. And this is my conversation with Ice from the American Gladiators, Lori Fetrick.
Prepare to be fascinated. Prepare to be fascinated. Prepare to be fascinated.
Welcome to Fascination Street Podcast, Lori Fetrick. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. How are you doing today?
I am wonderflonium. That's right, ladies and gentlemen. You heard me say it. I said Lori Fetrick, but most of you know her as Ice from American Gladiators. Holy shit. I got the OG Gladiator right here. One of the OG Gladiators. Lori, what I like to do is I like to help the audience understand how the guests got to where they are by starting where they started from. So if you don't mind, where were you born and raised? Where'd you grow up?
I was actually born and raised out in San Bernardino, California. San Bernardino is a huge county out there, but, you know, a lot of people still don't know where it's at.
Yeah, I was going to say, where is that? I don't.
It's on its way to Palm Springs. So from Los Angeles, it's a good hour away.
Oh, gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay. So what was it like growing up in that town? I know you were a little bit of a tomboy.
Mm-hmm.
What was it like, I don't know, at home? What was your home life like?
I want to say, I always say that I had like a very normal, whatever normal is. You like that? There is no word normal anymore. You know, kind of a childhood. My mom was a stay-at-home mom. My dad worked. He just worked like an average job. I loved my father so much. He passed away, but yet at the same time, the man had no ambition. You know, it was really interesting. As you get older, you learn your parents. I just grew up in a normal kind of like, you know, the mom stays at home. She cooks, she cleans, she, you know, made our clothes. My dad worked a job that I don't think he really liked. And as I grew up, I realized that. And I went, wow, I never, ever want to do that, ever. So I think that kind of, you know, programmed me in a way.
Do you think that, you know, as you get older and there's a little distance and you see that your dad did not enjoy that job, but still did it to take care of the family? I know that you love him and you respected him, but do you think it elevated those aspects of him in your mind because he did this thing he didn't like just for the family? Or do you chalk it up to he didn't really have any goals and he was just content where he was?
The latter. The reason I say that is because of the fact that my father was in the military and he was extremely smart. And as far as his career in the military, they wanted to keep moving him up. And he just didn't want to do it. What my mom told me is they wanted to put him in this type of missile school that you had to have a certain education, and you had to have a certain IQ. And he passed all of it and he was really good. but he didn't want to go any further because it required too much studying. It required something that he just didn't want to damn do. I do remember this. My mom was telling me when he got out of high school, he started working at a veterinarian's office, and the veterinarian went, wow, you're really good at this. You're really good with animals. He offered to put my father through veterinarian school. And my father turned it down because of the fact that he didn't want to owe him anything. Blew my mind. So all these different little things that he had opportunities to do and he turned down for whatever reason, maybe it was the way he was raised.
Right.
I mean, if you think about it, everything trickles down.
Sure.
As you get older in life and you realize, you're just like, wow, why am I the way that I am? It comes from so many different generations. You take the super rich and wealthy and they start teaching their kids at a super early age on how to manage money, how to make money, just how to, kind of be your own boss or go into the family business, whatever it may be. But then you take kids that are just in an average, normal, lower income family, and that's all they know. Guess what? That's how they're going to be raised.
Yeah, that's what they're learning too.
Exactly. So it's just one of those kind of situations, unfortunately, but when you see it and if you can get out of it as a teenager or as a young adult, it's awesome.
Thank you for that. I want to spend just a little bit more time on your childhood because I was not raised, nor am I now, a very religious person, but you have an interesting relationship with some church when you were a kid. Please tell me what that was.
That church was the Worldwide Church of God. There are certain branches of it that still exist today. The main hub of it apparently dismantled many, many years ago. The way I describe it is they took a little bit of something from every single religion and put it all together.
Just all the good stuff?
No, not all the good stuff. A lot of the bad stuff. That's in my perspective anyway. Like I said, we didn't celebrate a lot of the normal holidays, anywhere from Christmas, Easter, pretty much any holiday, to be quite honest with you. We didn't celebrate our birthdays. The church had their own days that they celebrated different things, Passovers and things like that.
They celebrated Passover?
Yeah.
Okay.
The days of unleavened bread, there's Passover, it's really interesting. I could tell you there's like things from Jehovah's Witness, there's things from Seventh-day Adventists, there's things from Baptists, there's things from Catholic, there's things from all these different religions. I could pick one or two things out of these religions and they put it all into one. So that's how I was raised. And now my mom was in the church pretty heavily and my dad was not. So therefore, I think it definitely created conflict between the marriage. The wives were not to wear makeup. The wives were not to wear any length of a dress, had to be a certain thing. And then I heard that they did get into their sexual activity as far as the man and the woman of what you could and could not do. And I think that's when my dad just went, I don't think so. Screw this shit.
Wow.
Yeah.
Did they stay married until he passed?
No, they got divorced after, I want to say 17 or 18 years. They were high school sweethearts.
Oh.
Yeah.
What a shock that high school sweethearts didn't work out.
I know, right?
Is your mom still alive?
Yes, my mom is still alive.
Good. That's going to come up later.
I'll be honest with you with the church. It took my sister in the opposite direction. She's a believer to a certain point, but she was a little older than me growing up in the church. So it kind of pushed her in the opposite direction. I don't really necessarily belong to a church. Yes, I believe in God. Yes, I believe in everything else. Yeah, but it was just such a weird upbringing, such a weird, bizarre thing.
When you say it pushed your sister in the opposite direction, what does that mean? Is she super religious?
No, the opposite. The opposite.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Sure. She's not an atheist. She's just not. You don't want to have a conversation with her about that. She won't have it with you.
Oh, cool. That's rad. Well, hold on while I bring her into this Zoom. Okay, so I know that growing up at a very young age, you set your sights on like the high school varsity basketball team. Why was that such an important goal for you and why so early? Because you were like way young.
It was the three. It was the softball, volleyball, and basketball. Yes, basketball. I'm gonna go there with you. Yes, basketball was it. I think because of the fact that when I was probably, I'm gonna guess, oh my God, 8, 9, old enough to put a basketball in my hand and push it to a hoop, I would be in the backyard with my dad. We'd be shooting hoops. And I just absolutely fell in love with it. We'd play constantly. I started playing even softball when I was in 4th grade, but that was just one of my sights. I just wanted to hit the varsity team, all 3 of them, actually, softball, volleyball, and basketball, my freshman year in high school. It was just a goal that I had, and I actually hit it.
Was this a small town?
No, it was San Bernardino. San Bernardino is pretty large.
Okay, so was this the same coach for all 3 events?
It was the same coach for all 3 events.
Is that coach still alive?
I don't know.
So my next question was going to be, do you have a relationship with that coach?
No.
I know that coach inspired you and informed you on how to work out and a work ethic as far as athletics goes and being in the gym.
Mm-hmm.
So you played all 3 at a varsity level. And then what was the plan? I know that you weren't going to go into the church. You weren't going to go be a professional fast pitch softball player. What was the plan? What did you want to be when you grew up?
That's an interesting question because I didn't have one, and I didn't have my parents giving me any direction. They were just thrilled if I graduated high school. Let's put it that way. I think their plan was, oh, she'll get married. Her husband will take care of her, that kind of thing, old school thinking. They didn't push me with any plan. So as I was going through high school, I got to be honest, I didn't have a plan. I did know one thing. There wasn't a lot of pro sports for females. I did know that, which was a little discouraging at the time. I just figured, to be honest with you, there was going to be a door that was going to open. And for some reason, I was very, very convinced of that. There was going to be a door. I just had to keep working hard. And one day it was going to actually show itself, and I had to be ready for that moment. It's almost a very strange thing, even as I'm saying it, but I had that true belief in my heart. Something was going to open up and something was going to be there for me.
Do you think that mindset that something's going to happen, do you think that was a product of the time? Like, do you think that there was a lot of people like that? Do you think you were fairly unique in that regard?
In my own head, I was unique because of the fact that most all my friends I was hanging out with at the time, they had college goals. The only thing that I could think of is maybe I could get a scholarship with my sports, and go to college. That was in the back of my mind for absolutely. That's why I think that, when I was playing so hard and wanting to make the varsity team, I figured that was my only way into college. That was the only way I was going to actually be able to make it. And my grades weren't that hot. It wasn't that I was dumb. It was that I didn't apply myself. I wasn't interested in books. I wasn't interested in school. I was interested in sports. I was an athlete. And after interviewing Laser on my podcast, it's interesting because I thought that was kind of a private rainstorm of my own. After interviewing him, I realized, I was like, wait a minute, that's interesting because that's all he wanted to be, was an athlete, his whole life. Fortunately and unfortunately, thank God Gladiators came along. But the unfortunate part is after Gladiators was over, it's like a pro athlete that goes plays pro football. It's like, okay, now what do? Do you get into broadcasting? Do you get into coaching? What is it that you get into after you're an athlete? So it's a blessing and a curse all at the same time.
It could be a million different things. I got a buddy who was a 4-time Olympic bobsledder for Jamaica.
That's awesome.
Yeah, he now lives in Wyoming. He's like, I don't know, head of security or something at a state psychiatric hospital, but then also he owns his own used car lot. So
wow.
Everybody does all kinds of crazy things after sports.
But there you go. But it's not like he became a doctor.
Right.
He didn't become a psychiatrist. He didn't become an engineer. He didn't become a career that actually could sustain itself throughout your retirement. Mm-hmm. That's funny you say that. Security guard has his own used car business. That's what I notice a lot of athletes do after their wonderful debut of, their career. Afterwards, they start hustling of however they can make money is what starts happening.
Yeah. At what point, I know you said that there wasn't a whole lot of female sports professionally, but at some point you were drawn to the world of bodybuilding.
Mm-hmm.
Why?
I think because of the fact that it was something that I could do with my body. I had complete control over. I could train as much as I want or as little as I want. When you eat and you diet, you can change your body. It's you. You are in 100% control of everything.
Everything you just said, you knew back then going into weightlifting?
No, I did not. I wish I could say that, but no, I did not know that. No, at the time, it felt right. It felt like what I was doing was the right thing, the right path. And when Coach Dudek took us into the weight room, it was a challenge. And I loved anything that was a challenge physically. And so I gravitated towards it. And so I learned a little bit, with her in high school and in the weight room. And then when I got out and going into the gym, that was for vanity reasons, to be quite honest with you, in the very beginning. That was just strictly, oh my God, I don't want to gain weight. And if I'm continuing the path that I'm on to where I'm just sitting all day long and not working out and not moving my body, that I knew enough about that right there to where it's like, I need to do something. And so when I was presented the opportunity to go into bodybuilding, I gravitated towards it big time because of the fact that it was like, okay, this could be fun. I did. I enjoyed it, but it got technical along the way, of course.
Did it get super intense?
Oh, very intense. Definitely.
You don't have to say, but during that time, was performance enhancing drugs, was that a thing in the industry of female bodybuilding?
Steroids was running rampant through the gym. It was never discussed. It was never talked about, like, I want to say, in a group of people. It was behind the scenes. It was, if you want to compete at this level, then this is what you're going to have to do. And you had to make a decision, And so what I did is I did a lot of my research. I said, okay, so what happens if I take this? What happens if I take that?
Now, this is back in the day. You can't just go online. So you're at the library doing this research?
That's funny you say that. I forgot about that. Magazines.
Okay.
Yes. Anything that you could get your hands on to read. There were a lot of magazines that you could actually read and get the information from.
Hold on. I'm going to pause here, Lori. Okay, kids. So what a magazine it was.
Exactly. It's something where you flip the pages physically. So yeah, I did. There was books that you could read, anything that I could get my hands on. And there was a lot of people I asked, very knowledgeable people. So yeah, I did a lot of the research and it was like, okay, so this is what's going to happen to my body. This is what's going to happen to me physically. This is how long it's going to take. Is it dangerous? Am I going to die? All these questions. And I got all the answers. And so what I did is I just started in a very moderate. If they said take 2, I took 1. And like I said, I'll say this forever. And it's not really a magic pill. It's not a magic shot. It's something that, yes, it enhances, but you have to put the work in. You have to train your ass off. You have to be eating the right things at the right time. It's not something you can take and all of a sudden, boom, you look awesome and amazing. It's going to enhance where you're going. Let's put it that way. So yeah, steroids were very running rampant through the gyms at that time. And they were all black market underground.
Aren't they still?
Not necessarily.
Okay, rad. Moving on.
Believe it or not, you can go to an anti-aging doctor. There's a lot of doctors out there now, anti-aging doctors and other doctors that it's actually good that there are doctors like this because they keep you under watch, meaning they take your blood work, they check you constantly. I mean, obviously, when I stopped doing steroids, these doctors were not around, but I have an anti-aging doctor because of my age now. I'm on bioidentical hormones. So therefore, they have to constantly check your blood work. There are doctors out there now that will do it, but you have to find the right ones.
Gotcha. We're going to fast forward just a little bit.
Okay.
Toward the end of your professional bodybuilding career, when you had just about reached the pinnacle as far as you could get without I guess, overindulging in the steroids. An opportunity came along with the American Gladiators.
Mm-hmm.
How did this come upon your radar, and what did you think of it? Like when it first hit and it came up to you, what was your reaction?
I found the American Gladiators by watching a television show one night, and Ray Hollett was on the show. Ray Hollett was a bodybuilder that I competed against in bodybuilding. So I saw her, I knew her. And, whenever you see anybody on television that you automatically go, oh my God, look, and you get excited and you start.
I do that constantly and it pisses my wife off so bad. We'll be watching anything every day and I'll just pause it and I'll just point and I'll be like, previous guest of the show.
Exactly. There you go. So I started watching the show and at first I thought, I always say this and I always think, God, was I really thinking that? And I really was. And that was, wow, this is the stupidest show I've ever seen. But it was an athletic show. And so it kept my attention. And Ray was on it. So it made me watch it even more. After watching it about 3 or 4 different times, I went, I can so do this show. I'm an athlete. I can do this. And whenever you wanted to find something out in bodybuilding or television or something like that, you would always go down to Gold's Gym in Venice Beach. That was like the mecca of where everybody hung out.
It's famous for that.
Yeah. Some of the gladiators got, I want to say, discovered at the Gold's Gym in Venice Beach back in the day. I didn't get discovered. I had to seek them out. So I went down to Gold's Gym Venice. I actually saw Ray training one day and I approached her. We really didn't know each other. We just competed. And so I went up and I introduced myself to her and I said, hey, I saw you on the show and how do I get on it?
You didn't say, hey, I saw you on the show and that's the dumbest show I've ever seen on TV.
Yeah, right. Exactly. That would have been awesome. So you're on the dumbest show I've ever seen, but I would like to. So when I asked her that question, now that I think about it, when I say this out loud, I'm sure that she had gotten this question many, many times. How can I get on the show? And at that point in time, she just went, oh, watch the end of the show. Everything's at the end of the show. If you want to audition, they have all the information. No, they did not have all the information.
That was a get the hell away from me line?
You're 100% correct. So, okay, so let's go back to the day where you're going to wait and do a little thing and go, kids, this is what this is. We didn't have the internet. We didn't have the cell phones. I watched the end of the show. I saw that it was by like 4 Point Entertainment or, whatever that may be. And I was like, okay, wait a minute. There's no information on how to try out. None. She bullshitted me. So I had to find the production company. So yes, I started flipping through the yellow pages. I knew they were here in Los Angeles. And since I lived close, I found out where they were at. And I literally went into the building and I walked myself in with my headshot and my resume at the time and said, how do I audition? And they gave me some information. They said, give us your information. And when we have tryouts, we'll give you a call. That's really how it came down to it. Nobody discovered me. I had to go out and find it.
Interesting.
Mm-hmm.
So that answered all of the questions, how you came to be and how you came to be involved and what you thought about the show.
Well, I just cut off 15 minutes of the show. No, I'm kidding.
I do want to say that over the course of the last week, when I would tell various people that I was going to have an American Gladiator on the show, they inevitably asked 2 questions and all had the same response. They said, boy or girl? I said, girl. They said, who? And I said, ice. And every single person, man and woman, said, holy shit.
I am so happy to hear that. It's interesting, as time has gone by, I have tried very hard to keep myself somehow in the social media world, so that people don't go, like, if you were to say, yeah, I had American Gladiator, I have ice, and they went, who?
Exactly. Yeah.
I had a fitness website. I tried to do something like that, and Instagram and TikTok, and, the TikTok really took off and that was a lot of fun. I think I have like about 250,000 followers now.
On TikTok?
Yeah.
Oh, congrats. I think I have 8.
You have 8? I'll follow you. Now you have 9. I don't have a lot on Instagram because I just haven't really spent the time to build that up. I just keep taking my videos from TikTok and putting them over to Instagram. But I think that has really helped a lot.
The social media?
Yeah, keeping my face out into the general public. That's very cool that, men and women are like, yay, ice.
Yeah, everybody.
I think that's one of the reasons why I decided to also do my podcast. What's next?
Let's talk about your podcast.
Okay.
First of all, you were on American Gladiators from 90 to 92 and 93 to 96, right? Something like that.
I went back and I started looking, and every time those dates are there, all I know is I was on it for 8 years.
Okay. Was there a gap?
Yes, there was one season. There was one season, a bunch of us, I don't want to say a bunch. If we would have had the entire team hold out that 1 year for a little bit more money, yes, we would have made that happen. But there was 1 year that it started with Nitro. Nitro and Jim and I decided, hey, this was after the tour, by the way. We went out on tour and we started seeing that we were filling these arenas. Like Madison Square Gardens was, I believe it was sold out. Nassau Coliseum, that was sold out. And so when we got back from the tour, we were like, holy shit, we're kind of big. And look at this amount of money that they're paying us. And look at all these toys and all the merchandise and all this stuff that's out. And we're not getting a dime of this.
You didn't get anything at all from all that?
Not a dime. Nothing. And so that's when, the guys were like, let's see if we can put something together. We'll grab a lawyer and we'll, try to get some merchandising, just a little bit out of it. But the problem is if you have 10 players, what happens with those 10 players? One person's going to go, I don't think so. I got to feed my family. That's a little risky. The other person's like, well, this is all I've got. So I don't want to do that either. So whatever, let's just ride this out. So each one of them has their own opinion. So therefore, you can't take the collective of 10. What we heard later on, years and years and years down the road was, it's kind of funny where some of the gladiators go, well, you never asked me to hold out. You never asked me to be with the group. And I think that was probably, and I don't want to say there's no blame. I'm not going to blame, but I think that was the downfall of Nitro and Jim and I, thinking that they were the two biggest, most popular players. And then they thought if they got two of the female biggest, most popular players, that us four were enough. No, we were not enough. We needed the entire team. So that kind of backfired.
I really thought you were going to say that when some of those gladiators were like, nobody asked me. I really thought you were going to say, no, we did. But you're agreeing. You're like, they probably didn't ask them.
No, I know they didn't ask them. I know they didn't. And that was the biggest downfall, because I think that at that time, Nitro and Jim and I were arrogant enough to think that the two most popular males and the two most popular females could carry that out. And the show just went, see ya.
The show said, look, I've got a whole stack of people who want your job.
100%. 100%.
Okay, so you were on the show for, what did you say? One month? No, how many years?
8 years.
8 years.
Yeah, 8 seasons.
That's a lot of shows.
Yeah.
Let's talk about your podcast.
Let's do.
It's called Chillin With Ice.
Yep.
It's very recent. I'm all caught up. I'm just waiting for the next one. So let me see here.
I'm a newbie.
Yes, there's been 3.
Yes.
Plus the intro.
I have the 3 on YouTube. I decided to do a Patreon account, and people who join the Patreon account get early access to any videos coming up. So in other words, the next episode is with Dallas. Well, Dallas is actually on my Patreon account, so people can watch that.
Gotcha.
And it's just tier 1. It's just a small level to where they get access to it, like $5.99 a month. I always say that cup of coffee.
A cup of coffee for the price of a cup of coffee a month.
For the price of a cup of coffee you can have.
Okay, so everywhere else, like if you're just a cheapskate free person, it comes out every Monday.
Actually, Tuesday. It comes out every Tuesday. It's on every single podcast where you listen to it across the board.
Are you sure it's on Tuesdays?
Well, that's what my producer said. She's dropping it every Tuesday.
Yep, it came out on the 25th. My apologies.
You scared me there for a minute.
See, mine comes out on Mondays, and so I listen to This is going to sound vain as shit, but I listen to mine so that I know how it sounds because I do everything myself.
Right.
And if there's an editing faux pas or something, I want to catch it as fast as I can. So I listen to mine and then I listen to yours every week for like the last 3 weeks. So I guess I need to step my game up and do it a little sooner, I guess. I don't know.
Oh, thank you.
Hey, Streetwalkers, here's a word from our sponsors. Let's get back into it.
So you are going to
Let me ask you something, Steve.
Sure.
How did you find my podcast?
Instagram.
Awesome.
I don't know why I started following on Instagram. It must have been a suggestion. I don't mean that disparagingly.
No, it's fine.
I just mean like I'm not really sure what made me follow you. I think it was a suggested post or something, and then I was like, oh, rad, and then I started following you, and then I was like, holy shit, she's got a show, and then I reached out. But I don't follow any other American Gladiators. I'm not in the bodybuilding. I'm not a workout person. Like I said, I don't know how you came across my feed, but you did, and I was like, and follow.
That's so cool. It's interesting because it's like my Instagram, if you look at it, it has nothing to do with fitness, it has nothing to do with bodybuilding. It has to do with like my animals, where I travel, what I do, where we go, and if we're drinking or partying or having fun. That's what my Instagram is about.
Well, it's working.
Yeah. So that's kind of fun if I'm on certain events and everything. But now, I'm starting to definitely promote the podcast as much as I can.
So the podcast, again, it's called Chillin With Ice. It comes out weekly. Get early access on Patreon.
Mm-hmm.
It is my understanding that you've decided to do seasons instead of just all the time, nonstop. Like my show I'm coming up on 6 years and I've never missed a Monday. And so you're doing seasons, which is what a lot of people do.
Can I just say one thing about that? I'm gonna tip my hat and take my hat off to you and go, that is dedication. And I know how much time it takes to put into podcasting now. So my hat's off to you. And that's awesome. That's amazing that you do it every single week and you have not missed a beat.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that. I've even thrown in some extras, but thank you. That is so sweet.
That's kudos. That's just amazing. It's a lot of people don't understand the podcasting world, and I'm just getting my feet wet into it. It's a whole different world.
So one of the questions that I wanted to ask you is, during COVID, probably 400,000 new podcasts started during COVID. A lot of entertainment industry, whether it was musicians or actors or behind the scenes or whatever, athletes, they couldn't do what they normally do. So they started a podcast. You waited until after COVID to start a podcast. Why?
Because during COVID, I was busy.
You weren't allowed to be busy during COVID.
I know, right?
Especially in California.
I actually help out a close friend of mine. And it was a very busy season for him, and it gave me work. So that kept me busy during COVID. And it came about really when the documentary came into play and said, okay, we're doing a documentary on the American Gladiators. Well, everybody started scrambling at that point in time going, okay, what am I going to do? What am I going to promote? What can I do? Because I hate to say it, but most of the gladiators aren't doing shit. They're either married and they're retired, or they just have little odd jobs here and there, and they're just trying to sustain a living.
Kind of like what we talked about with retired athletes.
Yes, exactly. So at the time when the documentary came up, the girls were all scrambling. Okay, we should, that's funny. I'm laughing right now because of the fact I remember the conversation we had. I had just finished rehabbing and flipping a house the year that COVID hit.
Wait a minute, hold on. You can't do that.
I did.
You can't, though, because Vanilla Ice is already the ice person who's flipping
Vanilla
houses.
Ice. I mean, I should contact him, actually. We should work together. I was a real estate agent for like 15 years. And I always thought about flipping houses, but I just never did. And I got into training with a good friend of mine, and she actually started flipping houses. And all of a sudden, one morning I went, wait a minute, you have never done real estate and you're already flipping a house. Okay, I'm just way behind on this. So I just decided, okay, I want to do this. And an opportunity came up to where a very good friend of mine, her husband passed away, unfortunately, and she was moving to New Mexico. She had a great house down in Long Beach, but it was just a vanilla box that was very old, very outdated. And she asked me to be the real estate agent to sell the house. And that's when I went, oh, wait a minute, this is my first opportunity. So I decided and I bought it from her and I flipped it. And I remember I was down in Long Beach in Lowe's driving because I'm up in Burbank. So it takes about an hour to drive down to Long Beach. And when COVID hit, it was like the freeways were desolate. And I loved it. I loved it. There was no traffic. I could get down to Long Beach in about 35 minutes.
Wow, you can't even get out of Burbank in 35 minutes.
I know. And then I was going in, and if you remember right, the big stores like Lowe's and Home Depot, they didn't shut their doors during COVID. And my contractor that I hired, he was just like, screw it, we're working through this. And I was like, right on. So I was about 5 months into COVID when I finally finished the flip. And then all of a sudden, COVID kind of started releasing a little bit, like you could leave your houses. And that's when I put it on the market. So I was kind of busy throughout that time. So my point on that, sorry, it took a small detour around the block on your question, but the girls were getting together with the Gladiators going, we should do like a flipping a house kind of thing, because some of the Gladiator girls had great interior design, aspects. And I had already flipped a house and I was like, okay, well then that means that we have to find a house to buy to flip so you could film it. And that was just, one of those things where it's like, unless we could get somebody to get behind us and do this. That's where the podcast came about, because nobody had the means or the money or anything like that to go out and grab a house and flip. And I had already done it. I loved it. But at that point in time, house pricing started really getting up high in Cali. I actually put in probably 5 bids on 5 different houses and I got beat out. I mean, because it was just insane how the prices are out here. So I kind of slowed down on that. And so I gravitated towards the podcast, and I was sitting in the middle of the interview and I had already thought about the name. My girlfriend gave me the name and we were at the end of the interview and they're like, so what are you doing now? I was like, oh, I've got a podcast. I had already made it,
So this was an interview for the docu-series?
Yeah, that was in the documentary. Once the Netflix documentary hits, it will be there. And I'm thinking, okay, this is worldwide. So everybody's going to hear, oh, she has a podcast called Chillin With Ice. So that's how that came about. And that's why I did not do it during COVID. I didn't have the idea during COVID, to be quite honest with you.
I'm going to say something that's going to sound backhanded, but it's not. You are one of the most opportunistic people I've ever met. And I mean that in a good way, because when an opportunity presents itself, a lot of people don't seize on it. And it sounds like you have seized on every single opportunity that walks by. And that is amazing.
I try.
That is some good timing and forethought, especially with that docu-series. And at that point, you hadn't even recorded a single episode of your show?
Not one episode.
Love it. Wow.
Not one episode.
Okay, let me ask you this question. I love asking this question. I don't want any numbers if there are any numbers. Did you get paid to be a part of this Netflix docu-series?
100%. And I'll talk about that all day long, because what people don't know, and I was going to actually do this with Nitro, but he, for some reason, doesn't want to do it. And that is, I wanted to have a podcast there's 2 documentaries. There's 2. And a lot of people are going to be very confused when it comes out. The very first one that's coming out is ESPN 30 for 30. The actual trailer is out on YouTube right now. And you're going to notice that, interesting, a lot of gladiators are not in this documentary. We're talking like A-list gladiators. We're talking Nitro, Ice, Zap, Laser, Tower, Diamond, Storm, Blaze.
Wait, hold on. These are the only names I know.
Those are the only names you know that are not in the ESPN 30 for 30. And the reason that is because when that came about, the creator of the show, Johnny Ferraro, came about and he called us all one by one. And a lot of us hadn't heard from him in 25, 30 years. And all of a sudden he calls us and he's like, hey, how are you? They're doing a documentary about me and we'd love to have you on the show.
About me. Love it.
We're like, the documentary's about you?
Well, then we don't need to be on the show.
Pretty much, exactly. Yet at the same time, we knew the documentary was going to be about us. And we said, what's it pay? He goes, oh, there's no pay.
He said, it's a documentary. Nobody pays for documentaries. And you said, peace.
Yes. And we heard that over and over. Nobody pays for documentaries. Nobody pays.
Somebody gets paid on documentaries. Look at Michael Moore.
This lawyer that we actually hired to help us down this road, he goes, if enough people tell you the sky is purple, pretty soon you're going to believe that it's purple and you're going to start telling other people it's purple. Enough people believe that you don't get paid for documentaries, they're going to believe that they don't have to pay you. No, people do get paid for documentaries. And we did get paid for the documentary. We just didn't get paid for that documentary because we decided not to do it. We all signed a release saying, okay, we'll do a little quick little interview, like a teaser, so that you can go out and sell it. And then once that comes back, then we're going to start negotiating our rate. Well, we didn't hear from him for about 6 months. And by that time, Netflix came around and Netflix decided, okay, we're going to do a docu-series. We're going to do 5 parts. So that's when the A-list team said, all right, okay, they're going to pay us, and they paid us a nice lump, beautiful sum for it. And then right when that came out, lo and behold, ESPN 30 for 30, well, the production company sold it to ESPN 30 for 30. And they went, we'll match the price. And now we're like, oh, now you want to pay us, because Netflix is going to pay us. And so the team got separated. 30 for 30 is coming out first. The ones on our Netflix were like, okay, well, that's our appetizer. ESPN's coming out first. That should be out the 1st of May.
Oh, shit.
Yeah, a couple weeks, a week. It sounds like by watching the trailer, since they didn't have a lot of the gladiators, I don't think they had too much of a story. So they actually did go back and use the story of Johnny and his partner on how they separated ways on the whole, how the American Gladiators, I don't know, came about or something like that. I'm not even quite sure. But some of the gladiators that got interviewed said they kept trying to get the dirt, on what happened behind the scenes between Johnny and his partner. So maybe it's not going to be about the American Gladiators. Maybe it's going to be about him and how the story came about. But I will tell you one thing, the Netflix documentary, that is about us. That is I spent 6 hours 2 times sitting in a chair being interviewed with Netflix. So it's going to be about us, the American Gladiators.
Any time frame on that release?
The beginning of June is what I heard.
That's exciting stuff.
I know. I'm excited about it.
Wow. Back to your podcast, Chillin With Ice. Tell everybody, what is it about? It's not about me and you. It's not even about Joey Ferrari or Johnny or whatever the hell his name is. It's not about Johnny Ferrari. What is your show about?
Right now, what I'm doing is I decided to, and this came about from my TikTok videos. I realized when I'm doing my TikTok videos and I was doing TikTok lives, I heard so many people go, wow, I had no idea what your personality was like, who you were. You're funny. You're this, you're that. This is so cool. We're getting to know you as a person.
Can I add a descriptor there?
Yeah.
You're also fascinating.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Fascinating Street. And so it dawned on me. I went, you know what? Nobody knows who we are.
That's right.
Nobody knows me growing up in a what I call a cult, in a church, in a family, in a small, and this and that, and what I did. And nobody knows about Ray Hollett and Jim Stars. And I'm learning about the gladiators as I go and I interview them. Like I just got done interviewing Laser and I had no idea he was actually up to be on the LAPD. And it was literally, he was deciding. It took him, he had like 5 minutes, and I don't know why, but it was like 5 minutes to decide, am I going to go on the American Gladiator television show or am I going to go to the LAPD Academy?
Which one did he go? Oh, sorry.
So, I'm learning a lot of these things about the players on the team that I honestly, because when you work with somebody, you don't necessarily sit down and go, so what was your childhood like? You're just kind of having fun and you're partying and you're in the moment. Mm-hmm. So I'm getting to know these gladiators, and that was my whole focus. I want to create a show to where I take the gladiators and I sit down and I go, okay, what was it like for you, behind the scenes? What was it like, before you got gladiators? Not what's your favorite event, or how you got on the gladiators, but what happened before that? What led up to you getting that show? And not only that, what happened to you afterwards? And that was the big question too, because a lot of people in the limelight, they'll just twizzle out and people are like, what happened to them? There'll be like this one hit wonder. Oh, what happened to that band? Kind of thing. I wanted people to get to know us, what led up to them being gladiators, how it was while they were doing gladiators, what opportunities came up, and what did you do afterwards? How is your life now? Are you training as much? Are you into anti-aging? You look fabulous. This is what I wanted people to get to know. And so I think it's going to be a great kickoff from the documentary, because even the documentary doesn't go into all that.
Sure.
When you see the episode with Dallas, I mean, there were certain things about Dallas. I won't spoil it, but there were certain things about Dallas I had no idea that happened behind the scenes, because this was in Orlando and I wasn't even there, because I would go in a month, come home a month, go in a month, come home. So there were things that I had no idea. So it's actually a lot of fun for me as well to get to know the players that I worked with for so many years on a whole different level.
I think that is super rad that you're finding out as we're finding out, the listener.
Mm-hmm.
And I will say that on your show, Chillin With Ice, the first couple of episodes, you had your girlfriend interview you, right, April? You laugh, but as you're sitting here explaining how you're finding out all of this stuff about your co-gladiators, your fellow gladiators, the before, the during, the after, it makes it easier for the listener if we already got that about you. So you're the host and we already have the, based on your episodes with April, we have the, how did you get there? What did you do there? What are you doing now? Kind of a thing. So we can also focus on the guest because we already know the host so well, if that makes any sense.
So you're saying I did it correctly.
I'm saying very, very well done.
Thank you.
Because if you didn't do that and you just dove in and you're talking to Laser, and we would be like, well, why aren't we hearing your story? I'm sure you're going to interject those stories as well, as part of the conversation, but it would be ludicrous for you to spend your interview with Dallas explaining how you found the American Gladiators. So I think you did it perfectly. You did it in the right order. You did it in the right way. And you did it with somebody who knows you well enough to know which questions to ask. So I think you did that was off to a great start.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
We kind of plan on doing a recap.
Absolutely.
As a matter of fact. And I know that you said that a lot of podcasters they don't have seasons. They actually, they just continue to go. Since I didn't know a lot about the podcasting world, I actually did hire a consultant and she was amazing. And she helped me. My podcast wouldn't be on the air today if it weren't for her. And she really helped me through the process of it. And she's the one who was talking to me about seasons because we were talking about sponsors and how sponsors work and stuff like that.
Right.
So that's kind of how we came about the whole season thing. Now, obviously, I don't have any sponsors in the very beginning because nobody wants to touch you in the very beginning.
And the reason is because tons of podcasts start and fizzle.
Of course.
I can't tell you how many podcasters I have mentored, and none of them made it to the first year. And only like 4 of them made it past about 3 months because it is a lot more work than they think it is. And so that's why nobody wants to touch it at the beginning. They're like, well, is this person even going to be around by the end of our contract?
I get that.
So sure, of course.
I literally have found a new love and passion for this. And it is so much fun. Put a microphone in front of me and I feel at home.
Isn't it so much fun? It's a blast.
I do. I love it. I wanted to get into radio when I was doing Gladiators. That opportunity never came around. I constantly heard every time I did a radio interview, they were like, oh my God, you have such a great radio voice. I would laugh all the time. But I plan on being here. I mean, like right now, as a matter of fact, the little pings about 5 or 10 minutes ago was actually Nitro. And he was sending me, he was like, oh, I've got this woman who would be great for your podcast. And then he tells me about her. And then there's another one. He goes, and then there's another one here that would be great on your podcast. So a lot of people are sending me who would be great after I get all the gladiators done. It's interesting because of the fact that, yes, I am into fitness. Yes, the people that I know are into fitness. But what I love about your show, Steve, is the fascination. It's seriously, I like how you smile on that one. The fascination with fascinating people and how they got there. That's what people want to hear. They want to know these things.
I do. That's why I started the show.
And that's why it's like you can take so many people. I mean, your list is endless. It really is. You just find that fascinating person and you go, okay, how'd you get there? Here, we're going to create a show around it. It's beautiful. But they also have to be, okay, the word realistic isn't there. But okay, so maybe we can find the word together. I was listening to the Brooke Shields podcast when I was, just listening to a lot of podcasts. Brooke Shields has a podcast and it's awesome. However, the guests that she's bringing on, unrelatable. That's the word I was looking for. The people that she's having on the show are very unrelatable. So she had one person on the show, and I can't remember who the actress was, but she turned down like this $10 million deal to be with her family. Okay, well, in her world, I guess that's something she could do, but in the vast majority of the world doesn't comprehend that. And you can't even relate to that. So it's a hard story to listen to, if that makes any sense whatsoever.
It does. And I have a speculation as to why it is unrelatable. And it's because Brooke, as the interviewer, didn't make it relatable. If I were to just ask you, I mean, we start the show and I say, hey, so how did you become an American Gladiator? And you say, I just walked in and handed them a headshot and they said, hey, let's do this. That's not relatable. But part of what makes the person relatable is finding out their backstory. Like, you grew up with your mom making your clothes and you had no idea what you were going to be, but you found a passion which led you to the thing. And all of that is what makes the actual thing relatable. Does that make sense?
100% correct. 100% correct. You're right. And we didn't get the backstory because we just jumped in on her podcast because obviously she thinks everybody knows who this actress is.
Right. And also she probably has a producer and or an editor who might have cut that stuff out because they were like, oh, this isn't going to get the eyeballs. This isn't going to get the clicks.
Nobody cares about that.
Right.
And again, when I started my podcast, I actually had that thought in my head for a moment when April and I would sit on the couch and we'd practice it back and forth and, kind of like, because she was more nervous than I was because she'd never done anything like this. And so I wanted her to feel comfortable sitting there asking me the questions. And so she'd have a couple glasses of wine, and I was just like, see, now I just got to get some alcohol in you and you're perfect. But my point on that is when we were going through some of the questions in my head, I thought, nobody's going to care about that. Nobody's going to give a shit about if my mom made my clothes. Nobody's going to care about, there are so many stories, Steve, that I left out because of the fact that in my head, I kept going, nobody's going to really care about that. But you're right. They do care about that. They do care about the details because it does make you relatable to where it might, just trigger somebody and go, oh, I went through the same thing. Or, oh, right. That happened to me. And all exactly. Of a sudden, now, boom, they're relating to you.
That's right. Like, for instance, you and I have a special bond that you have no idea about.
Tell me.
Our first crush.
Which one?
Christy McNichol. That made you instantly relatable to me when you said that. And that is such a small detail that you wouldn't think that anybody would give a shit. But exactly. That one detail made me like relax my guard. I'm like, oh my gosh, this is going to be an amazing, I can't wait. This is so cool. Go on like that.
That is so cool.
So it's all the little things.
It is. It's in the details. And what's the old saying? I mean, it actually doesn't relate to this, but yeah, the devil's in the details.
Yeah, you're the devil. Hey, so here's the thing. We are winding down here. I would love to have you back at a certain point in the future because I think I could talk to you forever. Hey, maybe I'll bring you back when you're about to drop season 2 or whatever, when you're into season 2.
That would be fun.
Does that sound cool?
Yeah, absolutely.
Cool. Earlier I asked you if your mother was still alive and you said yes. And I said, that's going to come up later. It's going to come up right now.
Okay, go.
a few years ago, when your mom was like 75, she would say things like, if I live another 3 years, blah, blah, blah. By my rough calculations, your mother
Hold
should
on.
be about.
Did you hear me say that, or do we have the same mom?
I live next door to your mother.
Okay, I just want to make sure because she still says this. Go ahead.
By my calculations, she should be around 81 or so, 80, 81, something like that, because I heard this. I'm 75 about 6 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
Is she surprised that she's still alive? And I don't mean, listeners, it's not like she was sick or she was ill, but even though she led a healthy lifestyle, she just didn't figure she had that much time left ever. Meanwhile, Lori thinks she's going to live to be 100.
You're in my world. Who are you? You're just living in my home. That is everything that you just said is spot on. My mother, when she was 75 years old, she was healthy. She was exercising all the time. And she would say to me, well, I'd be like, Mom, in 10 years, she'll be like, oh, I'll be dead by then. I'm like, what?
Your mother is an old Jewish man? Why does she sound like that?
I know, right? Well, it's interesting you say that because my mother was married to an older Jewish gentleman, her second marriage. And so I think she picked up on a lot of that. But anyway, every year she'd be like, well, if I live that long, well, if I'm alive then. And I'm like, well, you're 81 now and you're still here. And every once in a while I'll hear her say, well, if I'm still alive, I'm like, Mom, I hear this every single year. She's getting older though. She is 81. And so she is finally winding down. And I don't mean that in a bad way. I just mean that
sure
in a way of, you're right. I always think my mom's going to live to be 100. I mean, I'd love to see her kick in here and still give me another 8 years. That would be nice. But she did get COVID. She got over it. She wasn't vaxxed. She wasn't boosted and she made it. She's healthy. You know what I mean? It's just, I'm super happy for her. And she's just, she lives alone and she has her little quirks and stuff. But yeah, every year, well, if I live that long, I'm like, just slap me in the back of the head every once in a while. If you hear me saying this, starting at 75.
That is amazing. Lori Fetrick, Ice from American Gladiators. The podcast is Chillin With Ice. It's available everywhere on Tuesdays. But if you sign up for just the price of a single cup of coffee a month, you can have early access to all these episodes. Also, there's a video component to these episodes on YouTube. Is that correct?
Yes.
Because I just listened audioly on iTunes or whatever. Lori, where can everybody find you on social media?
You can find me on my TikTok channel, which is Lori, that's spelled LORI.ice.Fetrick. My last name is F as in Frank, ETRICK. And that's the same for my Instagram. I believe it's the same for my Facebook as well. And on my YouTube channel, it's Chillin With Ice.
Nice. Is there a .com everybody can go to?
Yes.
Is it still Lori Fetrick Fit or is it only IceAmericanGladiators.com?
Those go to the same exact place. And here's the other thing you can go to. You can go to chillinwithice.com.
Oh, snap.
I do have a store feature on there to where you can go to the store and you can see the OG hats and the Chillin With Ice hats. And
hey, guys, y'all aren't seeing this, but that hat is sick. I'm going to have to get one. It is so cool. I love that hat.
Thank you. Yeah, there's a store on that. So it's chillinwithice.com.
Fantastic. I know that we talked about a lot of stuff and we were a little bit all over the place, but as we're headed out here, Lori, is there anything I didn't ask you or we didn't talk about that you specifically wanted to talk about today?
No, Steve, it was awesome. Thank you so much for having me on your show. Absolutely loved every minute of it. Yeah, I'll definitely come back because after I get done with all the gladiators and moving into more athletes and different fascinating people, I'd love to come on and talk to you more about the adventure. I'll have so much more to talk about.
It will be 100% my pleasure. Lori Fetrick, Ice from American Gladiators. Thank you so much for taking the time out of your busy day and your Chilling With Ice schedule to hang out and let us get to know you a little bit better on Fascination Street. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
And you have a great rest of your week.
You too.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Opening music is the song FSP Theme, written, performed, and provided by Ambush Vin. Closing music is from the song Say My Name off the 2021 album Underdog Anthems, used with permission from Jax Hollow. If you like the show, tell a friend, subscribe, and rate and review the show on iTunes and wherever else you download podcasts. Don't forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel. All the episodes are available there as well. Check me out on Vero at Fascination Street Pod and TikTok at Fascination Street Pod. And again, thanks for listening.